Welcome back to the Garden with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy that you've chose us to be part of your day. Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Leo Carver has been involved in teaching and promoting holistic wellness techniques for the past decade. Leo serves the community by teaching others about the powerful healing practices of meditation, yoga, Ayurveda, natural herbalism, and more. He has taught classes and retreats on these subjects in front of audiences from all walks of life, with a talent for making these subjects relatable and accessible. His book is Growing Consciousness, The Gardener's Guide to Seeding the Soul. Welcome to the program, Leo.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day, not only to educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners.
So many people don't know what Ayurveda is. Can you, give a brief rundown of what Ayurveda is?
Well, I'll try my best anyway, right? So Ayurveda is a 5,000 plus year old medical science that comes from ancient India. It primarily deals with, it's really a holistic science, but it deals a lot with diet and lifestyle choices and things like that to bring about a balance, between mind, body, and spirit, and promote the best health qualities within yourself. It's based on this principle that essentially if the body is within balance, and everything is flowing correctly, you will experience perpetual health. And then it can heal itself.
And it's a sister science to yoga.
Yes, definitely. Yes, a lot of the source material is similar, if not the same, and yoga is very much a part of Ayurveda.
Well, what brought you into the gardening and holistic wellness genre? Was it something that you found early on in life, or was it like an aha moment later on, like, yeah, this is where I need to be?
That's a good question. It actually, I can say both in some senses, because when I look back on my life as a child, I was always drawn to nature. And always, even before I really had a full concept of what it meant, always drew some kind of spiritual kind of oneness or freedom, if you will, that I felt while out in nature. I spent a lot of times outdoors and to myself, and speaking to God, if you will, and kind of just, I don't know. It's always been that kind of scene for me. And communing with nature in different forms. But in terms of where I am now, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in the early 2000s. And due to the lack of really any sign of a cure or anything like that, I immediately kind of sought out some natural means, and it was part of path that I was on anyway, my wife and I, and along that path, I discovered Ayurveda through if you're familiar with Dr. Deepak Chopra, through his work and through his center, I was introduced to Ayurveda, and because of the nature of Crohn's disease, with it being a bowel disease and having a lot of effect on one's relationship with food, Ayurveda just kind of aligned with what I think I needed at the time to heal. And with that going on at the same time, because Ayurveda is so pro healthy sources of food, eating with the seasons, just general healthy agricultural practices, I kind of was toying around with gardening and learning a little bit about gardening as far as like growing some of my own herbs and food and such. And both of these things were kind of happening at the same time for me. And so in that sense, with all that going on, I could say that I experienced some aha moments too.
Right. And we speak to a lot of people, and whether they're religious or spiritual, the consensus is in nature, they have some understanding that there's something bigger than us that put all this together.
Yes, most definitely. If there's nothing else, um, I would say that gardening is a perfect setting for if you want to convince somebody that there is some grand design. Because if you just look at the way that things fit together and the way that life is produced from seed, and you really pay attention to that process, there's so many parallels to life and to our general sense of being and oneness with everything, I would say.
Definitely. So, can you tell us about your book, Growing Consciousness: The Gardener's Guide to Seeding the Soul? Something that, maybe kind of a brief description, and then something that would pop out that would pique the interest of our listeners.
Well, really, a lot of the things that I've already kind of been speaking on. The book is more or less a collection of not only my thoughts on just presenting this way of gardening to the reader, but also some observations, some actual techniques, some aha moments, and in general, the purpose of it is to bring out the spiritual aspects, or the I guess you could think of it in terms of deeper levels of awareness that are present within the gardening practice, and ways that you can find that. And so in the book, I wrote it with people from the wellness side of things in mind, more so because that's more so my wheelhouse, and trying to introduce them into gardening and using that as another a way of finding that mindfulness space within their life. But in the process of writing a book, and also in growing myself as a gardener, it also is presenting this information in a way that I think is reachable for somebody who's just coming purely as a gardener to this book, and just wants to, I think that something I have found in the gardening community is that regardless of one's faith, or even I would assume even if they're atheistic, there's a sense of what I'm terming spirituality, that one can feel just from communing with nature. It's a natural setting that I think we react to in all our levels, and I try to capture that in the book as best as I could, or at least my take on that, and how one can cultivate those things and bring them into their lives more.
Well, for people, we've got people listening all over the country and on podcast replay who whenever you were diagnosed with the Crohn's disease, what was your mindset? Was it like, did you have, pity yourself for a little bit and then said, okay, we got to figure out what's going on? Or was it one of these things that some people may think, I have it for a reason. Now I got to figure out what that reason is.
Again, a little bit of both, honestly, because I think it's natural when you're going through something that's serious, and especially the way that it happened in my story and so many that I've heard. I dropped weight drastically really fast, and they didn't really know what was wrong with me. So of course there was this period of panic there. Mm-hmm. But as somebody who has always kind of been spiritual in that sense, or always tried to look at some of the deeper meaning behind the things that I was experiencing in life, I naturally kind of saw this as that too. Where's the lesson in this? What is it that I can do? What is in my control, at this moment? I mean, and that's not an easy space for everybody to find, and when they're experiencing something like that. But thankfully, I did kind of get that mentality about it pretty early on.
That's great. So you do, you teach about the holistic wellness. What is something that you learned while you were teaching others?
The power of the calmness of mind, I think, is something I would say that I've learned not only for myself, but in seeing what it produces in others. And it's actually one of the things that I think the garden can really help with. is producing a peacefulness about oneself, and the ability to kind of observe in a relaxed way the things that are occurring in life. There's a parallel with that that you find in meditation and some of these other spaces. What I'm speaking about when we were talking about yoga and Ayurveda and all these things. You can find that in the garden, and I think if I had to pin that answer to one thing, I'd say it's the power that can give a person, to really find stillness and a centeredness within themselves.
Well, you talk about the mind-body connection in the garden. Whenever you're in the garden and you're in nature, what is the thing that calms you the most, that kind of resets you in life, that you can keep going? Because we all need that reset every now and then.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Well, one of the things that I point out in the book and in some of the other works to where I parallel gardening to Ayurveda, Ayurveda is very big on, it's really based on this theory of the elements, the five primary elements, and this idea that those elements are present in us and in our outside world. And without going through a big full rundown of that, basically, all those elements are present in the garden, right? So, if I feel that I need a little bit of grounding because my head is foggy and my thoughts are racing and I have those kind of things going on at the moment, simply going barefoot into my garden, while I'm in there piddling around or whatever it is that I'm doing at the moment, being barefoot there, actually putting the soles of my feet to the earth and that having that connection, that's one thing. Sometimes it's just like the breeze blowing through the garden and it catching the scent of lavender or something that I have growing around. There's so many different things. It could be observing the different critters that might, be around in the garden, whether they're, wanted or not, but just observing them and kind of getting lost in that, their little world for a moment. And it kind of helps to just clear your head of everything that's going on. And, I think it does take some practice or some intention to see things with those eyes, but I think it's available to anyone to kind of tap into those moments.
And I'll add one more. No matter what you're going through, somebody's going through something worse than you.
Yes, and always remembering that. Yes, that definitely helps.
Okay, so we definitely we've really enjoyed having you on the program. How can people find out more about you and your great information?
Yes, I appreciate you all having me. I'm active on social media, primarily on Instagram and Facebook, just under Leo Carver. You can keep up with a lot of the work that I do. I do with my wife, Dr. Melissa Carver, and you can go to her website to keep up with some of the events that we have. Like we do an annual rejuvenation retreat here in our state of Kentucky, and do different speaking engagements. Those will always be posted on her website. That's drmelissacarver.com. But as I said, in general, the socials, just looking me up as Leo Carver. I'm pretty accessible in that way.
Well, we appreciate the time you've offered us, not only educating Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. We thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And